Is with us. You joined us yesterday morning to, of course, talk about the debate, which had quite a few fireworks, to say the least. But so nice to have a primary on the weekend, because I think that we have a lot to talk about this morning. First of all, I just want to make this real simple, real quick question for you. Your prediction: what happens today?
Well, clearly, South Carolina has become a player. I see that there are going to be two big winners out of the South Carolina primary. The two big winners are going to be the super PACs and the media stations. There's been $12 million spent in South Carolina, more for any one-party primary ever in the history of the state. It's phenomenal.
All right, but who comes out on top? You got to give me your prediction. Come on.
Of course, I'm smart enough not to give a prediction. I think former Speaker Gingrich is going to do quite well today, and I think it's going to send shockwaves through the Romney campaign. Keep in mind, let's do a hypothetical. If Newt Gingrich actually wins the South Carolina primary, then the record so far is 1-1-1. Because now they're saying Santorum won Iowa,
right.
Romney won New Hampshire, and then it'll be Gingrich. So this will be a horse race, and of course in another week you have Florida, so that's going to be the next battleground.
John, you just were talking about money and super PACs, and it's been a real contentious issue in these campaigns. And this morning, a judge struck down political fundraising limits in San Diego on the eve of the San Diego mayoral campaign. This is a big story, is it not?
Huge. Huge.
Talk about that an impact on the local campaigns, and maybe as it mirrors the national campaigns.
Well, there's apples and oranges in the sense that federal regulations are completely different. What the court decision yesterday was for the city of San Diego regulations. They enacted these regulations several years ago, and several different components, it was several different agencies in San Diego that combined to file this suit. Now, it was a mixed decision yesterday. The judge literally went down and hit all the points in the lawsuit and said, agreed with the city on some, agreed with the plaintiffs on others. So it changes quite a few things. The biggest change was the limits on what a political party, because again, these are what a combination with independent expenditures, those really are becoming the real big powers in our local elections.
So really, it's taking away limits on contributions, right?
From political parties was the main aspect.
Okay, so it could be a pretty big player in the campaigns coming up.
Of all the jurisdictions that I've worked with throughout California, cities, counties, statewide elections, etc., San Diego has some of the most restrictive campaign regulations that they have. Personal checks, $500 limit per individual. When you think about, when we've talked about mayoral candidates that they're raising $300,000, $400,000, when you break it down, that's a lot of contributions, meaning that's a lot of hard work.
All right, John, we talk about money. Now we're going to talk about campaign bashing. Obviously, we've seen a lot of this in the national spotlight right now. A question for you this morning. We've seen a lot of it within the Republican candidates kind of bashing each other. And at what point, my question for you is, when there's an independent voter right now out there who is not satisfied with President Obama's agenda and was planning on voting perhaps for a Republican candidate in the race, at what point, though, do they look at this bashing and say, you know what, it's hurting all of them? At what point does that happen?
At some point. Now, the reason I'm giving you a vague answer is because, again, in political science textbooks, historically throughout campaigns, both nationally and statewide in California and even locally, there is a point where that does create a backlash, and where it does turn voters off. The reason I'm being so specific is because we have not seen that phenomena yet in these Republican primaries. What we've seen is what you're calling the bashing has helped the candidates. It's improved their stature, both not only for Newt Gingrich, but for Santorum. He's come up in the polls when he's kind of considered, other people have used this term, I haven't, a milquetoast, and so when he's come across a little aggressive for him, he's gone up in the polls. So people are liking that kind of fight-type attitude. There is a possibility of a backlash, we just haven't seen it yet.
What is it about Santorum? What do you think has made him so popular all of a sudden?
Well, because his strategy has always been, starting with Iowa, to appeal to a very niche. He thought they could really get a core base that would be enough to keep him in the fight. And so far, his strategy has proven correct. In Iowa, it was the so-called evangelicals. Okay? Keep in mind, you went from Iowa to New Hampshire, which is not as conservative as Middle America, and then you've got South Carolina, which is considered more conservative than both Iowa and New Hampshire. That's kind of his base. So he might do better than people predicted a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
All right, one last time. Who you like tonight?
It's going to be a very vigorous, challenging primary.
Very good. Thank you, political analyst John Dadian. Appreciate you coming on this morning.
Good to see you both.
All right, you too. Apparently, actor